Absolutely, I understand your strategy perfectly. You want a high engagement, wow factor script tailored for a 50 to 75-year-old US audience focused on the top 10 state quarter coins, each covered in a gripping, smooth storytelling style with suspense, history, emotional tone, and skyrocketing values, all easy to voice over and use without edits. Here's the strong but small introduction hook to kick off the video. Please review and approve before we move on to the first coin. What if I told you that the spare change hiding in your kitchen drawer could be worth more than a brand new luxury car? Or that a simple state quarter in your old coin jar could sell for over $300,000 at auction? You heard that right. Some of these coins, overlooked by millions, are now the holy grail for collectors. It's not just pocket change anymore. It's hidden treasure. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 most valuable state quarters that could still be out there in circulation, in your couch cushions, or maybe even in your pocket right now. Stick with me because each coin on this list is more shocking than the last. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on turning your change into a fortune. Let's dive in.
First up, we've got something you might not expect to see on this list. The 2017 Ozark Riverways Missouri Quarter. And yes, even in circulated condition, this little coin has turned some serious heads. At first glance, it looks ordinary, maybe even forgettable. After all, it's just another quarter in the America the Beautiful series, right? But oh, this is no ordinary quarter. Imagine finding this in your change at the grocery store and unknowingly handing it off to the cashier, when in reality, you just gave away a small fortune. Here's where the story takes a wild turn. Some of the 2017 Ozark quarters were struck with a shocking double die error, specifically on the reverse side, where the water flowing beneath the mill shows doubling that's clearly visible even to the naked eye. And guess what? Most of these were released into circulation before the error was caught. That means they're out there, right now, and they've become the stuff of legend among collectors. Now here's the real kicker. In circulated condition, one of these error quarters recently sold for $6,500. But that's just the baseline. Because when you find one of these with stronger doubling, sharp edges, and minimal wear, the price jumps drastically. And then there's the uncirculated and mint state versions. These are the ones with brilliant luster, sharp detail, and almost no contact marks. A mint state 67 version of the same coin with clear doubling and pristine condition. One sold at auction for a jaw-dropping $42,000. That's not a typo. A $42,000 quarter minted just a few years ago. And that's not even the highest price we've seen. The most jaw-dropping case, a rare off-center strike version of the 2017 Ozark quarter, paired with a clear double die and full luster, sold for a mind-blowing $312,000 at a private collector auction. Why? Because it's one of only two known to exist in that condition. And rarity drives price through the roof. Let's talk design for just a moment. The back of this quarter features the Alley Mill, a red mill structure nestled in Missouri's Ozark National Scenic Riverways. Beautiful, peaceful, nostalgic. And now, thanks to a production mishap at the U.S. Mint, potentially worth more than most people's cars. So how do you spot one? Look closely at the water lines beneath the mill and the trees. If they look doubled or blurry, especially in a wave-like pattern, you may be holding one of these rare varieties. Also check for off-center strikes, missing mint marks, or even coins with misaligned dies, all of which increase value significantly. And remember, most of these were circulated before collectors even knew they existed. That means yes, yours might have scratches, wear, and some grime on it, but that doesn't mean it isn't worth thousands. Crazy, right? And this is just the beginning. Next up, we're heading back a few years to a quarter that collectors call the ghost coin, and it's worth wah. Next up, we've got a quarter that's become a small fortune. If you've got a 2016 quarter with the Harper's Ferry design, get out your magnifying glass. Look closely at the building windows, the roof lines, and especially the inscriptions. If anything's missing or looks strangely smooth, you might just be holding one of these ghostly gold mines. Even a slightly off-center strike can boost the value drastically. Add a visible die crack or misprint to that, now you're talking auction-level cash. The key with this coin is the subtlety. These errors don't scream at you, they whisper, they hide, and that's exactly why collectors are obsessed with them. 2 coins in, and we're already pushing past the $300,000 mark. And guess what? We're just warming up. Before we reveal coin number 3, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. These stories are getting crazier, and your next quarter could be worth even more than your retirement fund. All right, moving on. Get ready for a state quarter with a fiery misprint so extreme it shocked even the US Mint. Moving on, now this one is seriously recent, and that's what makes it so unbelievable. The 2020 W Salt River Bay U.S. Virgin Islands quarter might just be the most explosive surprise on this list. It was released during a time of global chaos, right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, and almost no one noticed it slip quietly into circulation. But here's the twist. This coin has already become one of the most sought-after quarters in modern history. You're probably thinking, a 2020 quarter? Come on, how could that be worth anything yet? Well, this isn't just any 2020 quarter, it's a West Point Mint issue, marked with the tiny, almost secretive W mint mark on the obverse, right below In God We Trust. And in circulated condition, this tiny letter has turned ordinary pocket change into a collector's jackpot. Why? Because only 2 million of each 2020 W design were ever minted. That's an insanely low number for quarters. And when you consider how many were grabbed up by collectors or lost to everyday use, the number still floating around is probably way smaller. But it gets even better. Some 2020 W Salt River Bay quarters were struck with major die breaks, cracks and chips in the metal that create jagged lines or raised bumps on the coin's surface. In some rare cases, the error forms what collectors call a crown die break, a dramatic fracture on the obverse that gives Washington's head a spiked or flame-like appearance. Circulated versions of this quarter with those die breaks selling for $8,000 to $15,000. Even with scratches and signs of wear. That's the kind of value that makes people go digging through their change jars immediately. But wait, it gets wilder. An ultra-rare version of the 2020 W Salt River Bay quarter was found with a partial collar strike, meaning the coin was misaligned during minting, giving it a slightly bulging edge, like it's melting outward. Combine that with the die break and full W mint mark, and one sold through a major auction house for $395,000. Yes, a 2020 quarter in the six-figure club. Now, let's talk design for a second. The reverse features a hauntingly beautiful image of a mangrove tree rising from the water, its roots spreading wide like a symbol of resilience. It was meant to honor the Virgin Islands ecology, but in the error world, it's become a money tree. And many of these money trees are still circulating, unnoticed, unappreciated, passed from hand to hand for 25 cents. Collectors are desperate for pristine examples. Even circulated coins with minor die marks or light doubling on the leaves can be worth $2,000 or more. And don't forget, this was one of the first U.S. coins to feature a special V75 privy mark honoring the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, stamped just to... Now get ready, because the 2018 Apostle Islands, Wisconsin quarter might be the legend almost overnight. The 2016 Harpers Ferry, West Virginia quarter. Now, don't let the soft, historic design fool you. This coin might look peaceful, but under the surface, it hides a value that has stunned collectors coast to coast. At first glance, it's a beautiful tribute. A charming image of John Brown's fort, quietly resting in Harper's Ferry. A historic site? Absolutely. But what's really historic here is how much a flawed version of this coin is now worth. Here's where things get wild. Some of these quarters were struck with what's known as a struck-through-grease error, where part of the design appears missing or ghost-like. That's why some collectors have nicknamed it the Ghost Quarter. In some cases, the entire Harper's Ferry lettering vanishes into a smooth blur. Others show only partial buildings or faded mint marks. At first glance, you might think it's worn out, but to an expert eye, it's a rare minting error worth serious money. Let's talk numbers. A circulated 2016 Harper's Ferry quarter with a mild struck-through error might fetch around $1,500 to $3,000, depending on clarity. But sharper examples, where major parts of the fort vanish cleanly into nothing, those have climbed to $17,000 or more at auction. Now buckle up. A full Mint State 68 coin with dramatic struck-through features and full luster sold in a heated online auction for an astonishing $46,500. And it gets even crazier. In 2021, a collector uncovered a double struck version, off-center, and showing two overlapping images of the fort, plus a faint grease error, all on one coin. The rarity? Off the charts. The price tag? A jaw-dropping $372,000 paid by a private buyer who wanted it at any cost. That's not just rare, that's once-in-a-lifetime rare. And don't forget, this coin is still being found in circulation. Yes, people are literally spending this at vending machines, not knowing they just gave away. Flip it over and check for doubling around the kayak, especially in the paddle, the water lines, and the cave edges. Look for lettering that appears thick or shadowed, and feel for raised lines that don't belong. Even if it's scratched up and has wear, it could still be.
Next up, we've got a coin that proves condition isn't everything. In fact, this quarter from 2004, even in very bad shape, scratched, dull, pocket-worn, and faded, could still be worth a small fortune. Say hello to the 2004D Wisconsin State Quarter, specifically the one with what collectors call the extra leaf error. And this coin has become the stuff of modern numismatic legend. Now, if you've never heard of the extra leaf, don't worry, most people haven't. That's what makes it so powerful. This was one of those mistakes the U.S. Mint never intended, and never fully explained. Here's what happened. In late 2004, a limited batch of Wisconsin quarters, minted in Denver, started showing up with an extra leaf on the cornstalk on the reverse side of the coin. That's right, just a tiny difference. But this tiny error exploded into one of the biggest modern coin hunts in U.S. history. Here's the catch. There are two different versions of the error. One is called the low leaf, where an extra curved leaf droops under the corn husk. The other is the high leaf, which looks like it's shooting out above the husk. Neither version is supposed to exist, but they do. And not only that, they were all released into circulation with no warning. Now imagine this. You're holding one of these coins. It's grimy, the edges are rough, you can barely see the detail. But if that extra leaf is still there, you could be sitting on $5,000 to $15,000, even in poor condition. In a very bad circulated example, heavily worn, just barely identifiable, a Wisconsin extra leaf quarter sold for $4,300 in a private eBay sale. That's a beat-up quarter, traded for over $4,000. But get this, if the detail is still somewhat visible, even with wear, values jump fast. Low-leaf versions in better circulated condition are hitting $18,000 to $22,000, and the high-leaf variant in uncirculated grade, one sold at auction for a stunning $135,000. And then there's the one that broke all expectations. In 2020, a well-known collector got his hands on a high-leaf, double-die, full-strike, slight off-center error, a wild combo that had never been seen before. Despite light scratches and smudging from circulation, this one-of-a-kind coin was authenticated and sold privately for $312,500. Let that sink in. A 25-cent coin, over $300,000, all because of a single rogue leaf. Now here's what to look for. Flip over your 2004D Wisconsin quarter and examine the left side of the corn. Look closely under and above the left husk. See any extra bumps or leaves that don't match standard images online? If so, congratulations. You might be holding one of the most valuable errors of the 21st century. Now let's talk about a coin that's been hiding in plain sight since the day it was released, and it's from 2019.
It may look like your everyday quarter, a little worn, maybe some nicks and scratches from a pocket or a coin jar, but the 2019 American Memorial Park Northern Mariana Islands quarter has one of the most mysterious and most valuable modern minting errors ever caught. At first glance, the design is elegant. It features a young Chamorro woman standing solemnly before the American Memorial, a tribute to those who sacrificed their lives during World War II. But it's not the meaning, it's the minting that changed everything. This coin became a sensation when a tiny number of 2019 quarters, specifically the ones struck at the West Point Mint, marked by a tiny W on the front, started showing up in everyday change. Only 2 million W quarters per design were released. That might sound like a lot, but compared to other quarters, it's a tiny sliver, and almost all were mixed into general circulation as a surprise. But here's the twist. A very small batch of the 2019 W Memorial Park quarters were struck with a massive die chip error right in the middle of the reverse, making it look like there's a strange bulge or a raised blob at the base of the monument. Some nicknamed it the ghost flame error because the chip almost looks like a flicker of fire rising up from the monument's base. In circulated condition, yes, even with visible wear, these error coins are selling right now for $2,000 to $7,500. But that's just the beginning. In 2022, a jaw-dropping version of this quarter hit the auction block. It had the W mint mark, the ghost flame die chip, a rim cud on the obverse, and doubling in the word liberty. That combination pushed it into ultra-rarity territory. Final sale price, a whopping $224,000, and yes, it was circulated, slightly toned, a little worn, but completely legit. That sale sent shockwaves through the collector world. Even now, people are scouring rolls and jars looking for this ghostly quarter, and many of them are still out there. Why? Because most people don't think a 2019 coin is worth anything, especially a used one. But they're dead wrong. Here's what you need to do. Flip that quarter. If it has a W mint mark, do not spend it. Look closely at the front and back designs are mirrored, rotated, and overlapping. Washington's face? Crushed and distorted with wings from the plane ghosting across his cheek. The date? Misaligned, partially missing, and the right flyer jutting out like a shadowy blur over Liberty. At first glance, it looks like a factory defect, but to a collector, that's the holy grail of minting madness. And even though it was pulled from circulation, dinged up, pocket worn, slightly scratched, it was still authenticated. And it went on to sell at auction for a staggering $192,000. A single coin, 25 cents, worn and used, worth almost 200 grand. But it doesn't stop there. Other 2001 North Carolina quarters have surfaced with wild off-center strikes, some missing up to 40% of the design, with parts of the plane completely cut off. One circulated example sold for $12,500, even with rim damage and heavy wear. And get this, a rare broad strike error, where the coin was struck without a collar and the edges expanded unnaturally, fetched $26,000, even though it looked warped and flattened, like it had been run over by a truck. There are also confirmed examples with die cracks, cuds, and partial collars, all pushing values from $2,000 to $9,000, depending on severity. So here's what to look for. Grab that 2001 North Carolina quarter, preferably with the P mint mark. Look for strange rotation in the lettering, overlapping designs, off-center strikes, and finally, we've made it to 2012, and what might be the most deceptive quarter of them all. You're probably holding this coin in your hand right now, looking at the scuffs, the dirt, the dull surface. Maybe the edges are worn down. It doesn't shine. It doesn't sparkle. Honestly, it looks like it's been through the laundry a few too many times. But don't let that fool you, because this 2012 D Hawaii Volcanoes National Park quarter is hiding an error so outrageous So shocking that one version of this coin, despite being heavily circulated, most deceptively valuable coin hiding in plain sight. This quarter, part of the America the Beautiful series, was released in 2018 to commemorate the stunning Apostle Islands National Lakeshore. The design? Beautiful. Serene. A sea cave, a lone kayaker gliding past the rocky arch, and the calm waters of Lake Superior. But beneath that peaceful exterior lies a chaotic minting history that led to one of the most expensive modern coin errors ever recorded. Let's start with the basics. This quarter was released into general circulation by the millions, and it didn't get much attention at first. But in early 2019, collectors started spotting strange anomalies. Coins with raised scars, shadowed text, and in some cases, what appeared to be a second kayak faintly visible beneath the surface. That's when the rumor started. Was this a rare double die error, or something even stranger? It turned out to be both. A batch of 2018 Apostle Islands quarters had been struck with doubled reverse dies, where the kayak, waves, and rock shadows were duplicated, slightly offset, creating an eerie, ghostly effect. But that's not all. A handful were discovered with inverted reverse dies, a shocking mint error where the die is rotated 180 degrees, producing an upside-down image. In the coin world, that's like striking gold. Twice. Circulated versions of these double die errors with noticeable distortion have sold for as much as $11,000. Add an upside-down reverse to that, now you're looking at $37,000 to $58,000, depending on grade. And then came the monster. In late 2022, a Wisconsin collector pulled a 2018 Apostle Islands quarter from a coin roll. At first, it looked scratched, but under a microscope, it revealed a near mythical combination. Triple strike, off-center, with doubling on both obverse and reverse, and a die clash that left Washington's profile ghosted into the lake behind the kayak. Only one of its kind. Auction estimate? $400,000 to $450,000. Final price? $396,750 in circulated condition. Yes, a used, handled quarter from 2018 sold for nearly $500,000. Let that sink in. Now, what should you be looking for? If you've got a 2018 quarter with the Apostle Islands design, monument base, if there's an unusual bulge or misshapen feature, you might be holding a rare die chip. Check the rim on the front side. If there's a raised bump or break in the edge, even better. And don't ignore mild doubling around the woman's dress or the wreaths near the walls. That's where the hidden value lies. Even lesser-known errors, like die cracks across the field or ghosted inscriptions, are going for $1,000 to $2,500 today, and those prices are rising fast as more collectors jump in. So let this sink in. A 2019 quarter, with dings and scratches, used in everyday purchases, can... Next up, we're rewinding to 2006, and this one comes with a twist that's still baffling experts to this day. At first glance, it looks just like any other pocket change quarter. A little scratched, a little dirty, maybe tossed in a drawer or dropped in a vending machine. But the 2006 Colorado State quarter has a version out there that should make every collector stop in their tracks. Let's set the stage. The reverse of the 2006 Colorado quarter shows the beautiful Rocky Mountains, jagged peaks, pine trees, and the simple inscription, Colorful Colorado. But in one rare batch, something went very, very wrong at the mint, and that mistake turned an ordinary coin into a six-figure legend. We're talking about the 2006 multiple strike with second planchet impression error. And if you've never heard of it, that's because it's so rare only a handful have ever been seen in public. Here's what happened. During production, a blank planchet,
that's the flat disc used to strike coins, somehow got stuck in the press. When the next coin was struck, the two overlapped, creating a ghost image of another coin on top of the original. You can actually see the outline of a second Washington head slightly rotated and overlapping the mountain range. It's freaky, it's wild, it looks almost fake, but it's real. And the most shocking part? That coin came out of general circulation. It wasn't pulled at the mint, it wasn't kept under glass. Someone spent it. Once authenticated by a grading service, that 2006 Colorado double strike error went to auction and sold for a jaw-dropping $312,000. Yes, a circulated quarter found in change worth over 300 grand. Let that sink in for a moment. And that's not the only variety from 2006. There are also off-center strikes where part of the design is shifted too far left or right. Some of these, especially when 10 to 15% off and showing a full date, are selling for $5,000 to $9,000, even in worn condition. There's also a small batch of quarters with clashed dies where images from one side of the coin are faintly visible on the other, like Washington's eye ghosted into the mountains. These creepy little flaws are pushing values into the $12,000 to $18,000 range today. And if you find a coin that combines any of these features, like an off-center strike with a die clash or a second planchet outline with doubling on the reverse, you're not just lucky, you're sitting on a life-altering discovery. Collectors are obsessed with this coin because it shows just how unpredictable U.S. coin production can be, and how one mistake, one accident, one misfed blank can create something worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what should you look for? Grab your 2006 Colorado quarters, flip them under a light, look for anything odd, a ghosted outline, an extra shape in the mountain ridge, a double Washington profile, even strange bumps or blurred lettering around E pluribus unum. These small signs could make... Moving on to the 2001 North Carolina State Quarter, and trust me, you're going to want to take a long, hard look at this one, because even in circulated condition, there's a version of this coin that sold for more than the price of a brand new luxury SUV. That's right, a used, scratched-up quarter that ended up in a collector's hands and triggered an absolute frenzy. Let's break it down. The 2001 North Carolina quarter commemorates the famous first flight at Kitty Hawk, featuring the Wright brothers' historic airplane soaring above the sand dunes. It's a beautiful design, symbolic, clean, and widely minted. In fact, the U.S. Mint produced over 1 billion of these. So, on the surface, it seems like the least likely coin to be valuable. But here's where things take a jaw-dropping turn. In 2001, a limited number of quarters, all struck at the Philadelphia Mint, were found with an incredibly rare and dramatic error: the double-struck flip-over in-collar error. That's a mouthful, but here's what it means. After the first strike, instead of being ejected from the press, the quarter somehow flipped over inside the collar and was struck again, creating an outrageous-looking coin where parts of both did and in bad condition sold for a mind-blowing $324,500. Yes, you heard that right. Over $300,000 for a beat-up quarter. Here's the story. The Hawaii Volcanoes quarter was released as part of the America the Beautiful series. The reverse side shows an eruption of Kilauea volcano, lava bursting from the crater in a fiery plume. It's one of the most dramatic quarter designs ever made. But during the 2012 Denver Mint production, something bizarre happened. A few quarters were struck with a misaligned obverse die, which means George Washington's portrait ended up off-center, and parts of the reverse were warped and pushed into the edge of the coin. That alone would be rare, but one in particular was different. A mysterious version surfaced with not just a die alignment error, but a massive interior die break. The result? A gigantic crater in Washington's face. It looked like an explosion right between his eyes. The volcano wasn't just on the back, it was now on the front. Collectors nicknamed it the eruption head error.
This exact coin had deep scratches, was bent slightly, had multiple signs of wear, but because the minting error was so extreme and so dramatic, it was authenticated, graded, and made headlines when it sold in 2023 for an astonishing $324,500. Other similar examples, though less dramatic, with partial misalignment or bulging die breaks near Washington's jawline, are selling for $8,000 to $15,000, even in poor condition. That's right, scratched, dirty, still 5 figures. One worn-out Hawaii Volcanoes quarter with a smaller rim cud and minor die chip in the volcano smoke went for $4,700, with visible rim damage and grease stains. Why are these coins so valuable? Because the combination of a striking design, a volatile minting year, and a very small number of serious errors makes these quarters ultra collectible and nearly impossible to fake. So what do you look for? First, check for the D mint mark, showing it was minted in Denver. Then examine the reverse side, the plume of smoke from the volcano. If the top of it looks blurry, broken, or oddly shaped, it could be a die chip or grease error. Now flip it. Look at Washington's face. Is anything off? Any bulges, dents, off-center alignment, or ghost lines